I do. You can buy like Gatorade little packet things but they're supposed to go in the smaller bottles than what I use.
Buy the huge tin with the powder in it. That's what we use.
It's basically that, but it's individual packets for it.
Sure.
So it's kind of the same thing. It's probably you're paying maybe a 5% premium for it to be in individual packets, but I use the packets that are made for the smaller bottle than I usually bring for the big bottle. So it's a little bit watered down.
Well, it's better that way. So that way it's
It's
sugary.
it's too-
Yeah, see, there's no sugar in this, though. This is just pure unadulterated poisons. Can't go wrong with it, right? All right, so today we are actually going to start our web front end for the project. Using Angular with Firebase, our initial goal is to, I'm not going to do a registration screen. We'll just we'll eventually do a registration screen, but we're not going to start with it. We'll just have our login screen that gets us in. We're going to have two types of users. We have, well, actually, we're going to end up having three types of users. We're going to have a consumer, somebody who's looking to have snow removal or grass cutting stuff done. We're going to have a provider, somebody who is able to provide that service, and then we'll also have the admin who can kind of see everything that's going on. So we're going to start off by creating a login page that takes us to three different experiences depending on who logged in. Make sense? All right, so fairly simple initial try. So we'll have three different kind of landing pages and go from there. All right, and let's see, I want to create, and then along with that, what we want to do is we want to go ahead and use, unless anybody has a strong objection, I think it makes sense to go ahead and use Firebase's hosting, since all our pages are going to be static pages with Angular doing all the dynamic stuff. So we don't really need a node server for this, right? At least not at this point. It doesn't seem like we need to. So we'll go ahead and try it out and see how their hosting thing works and go from there. All right, so what I'm going to do, we're going to create a new do you know, does he have a name for this business at this point? Yeah. You don't know if he's named it?
I can text someone and figure it out.
Oh, well, it's not that big a deal. There, we'll just put it, we'll call it just snow removal. Call it Snowman? Project, oh, and there's got to be Project Snowman. Project Snowman. All right, so it's going to be the name of it, Project Snowman. So we're going to start a brand new project in here. We're going to start a brand new thing on Angular. So we're going to, or with Firebase. So we're going to kind of start from scratch as if we're initially making this application and let it start growing. So let's go in. I'll go ahead and log in. Okay, it already has me here. And let's see, I need to create a new project, right? So this is Project Snowman. So we'll create that app. And there we go, Project Snowman. All right, and I'm going to start a new tab here. We're going to do Angular Firebase. I misspelled it, but it'll take me to the right place. There we go. All right, so we're using Angular Fire as our starting point. And let's, under the guide, is that where the login is? Well, here, we just do this one. Angular Fire. Angular. Is it? User authentication. Okay, so we're going to let Firebase manage passwords. I think that makes the most sense for us since they've already implemented that. There's not a good reason not to do that. We might look at doing Facebook authentication later on, but start with just plain Jane email and password, the same stuff we looked at last time. Okay, so we're going to manually create our accounts initially. So we're not. This is the registration screen. So we're going to go to this thing, logging users in, and the logging in is going to be coming from a. Let's see. We want to do a. Let's do a Angular text box change. We'll just use this as a quick example. Actually, let's do this Angular tutorial. That'll take us to the W3 pages, so we can just steal that code. Okay. All right, let's steal this one and modify it. I think that'll do what we needed to do. Okay, so let's open up my. What text editor do I use on here? Is that the one I've been using? Okay, there we go. All right, and we are going to put this in here. Project Snowman. And let's call this guy index.html. I'll go ahead and paste that stuff in there. Okay, so we've been messing with Angular last couple of classes, but specifically this last homework assignment. And Angular is effectively an implementation of MVC, right? I mean, you have your controller, you have your model, and then you have your binding between the two. So that's what it is. It's an implementation of MVC inside of a web page. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to, we'll leave it called my app. Here's the controller for this guy. So this is the code behind for this front end. Okay, remember MVC says we separate our user interface from our back end. All right, so we're going to get our login. So here's our username. And this guy is going to be associated with a username. And then we have our password. And this guy is going to be of type password. And this will be user password, although they're storing it in a JSON object, but it's not going to hurt anything. All right, and then we have our button, and on click, we'll have this guy try to call this login function. Okay. Now there's kind of three different ways we can do binding in Angular. So I don't know the exact name for each one, but this version, this is a Angular expression. So anything inside here will boil down to its value. Then we can bind to a HTML field where we can bind it inside the tags. And the last one is the one we've seen most of the time. So we'll bump into all of those as we go, but let's dump that. And then here's our script. Here's our controller for our form. And it's putting in some hard-coded values in there. need that. Let's see, they're saying scope.master, scope.user is equal to Angular copy, scope.master. Okay, so they're assuming that these guys are both, that we're having an object that has a first name and last name in it. I just expanded that model here. We really don't need to do this as an object, right? We can just say username and password. And then scope.login is equal to, we probably want to go ahead and we need to do a data binding just to prove we read the stuff in, so we'll do that up here. So let me go back here. Actually, we can do it just like this. Username is going to be equal to whatever username is equal to. Password is going to be equal to whatever password is equal to. Save that. So we'll put in their username and password. We call login. Here's the login function. We'll go ahead and set scope.username. Actually, we shouldn't even have to put in anything because those are bound already, right? So we would need to hit the button. I'll just leave that blank for right now. So these two things should be bound to these two text boxes. So as we type stuff in here, we should see stuff show up in here. That's the idea, right? So we'll go ahead and set that there. Now we do need to fill out the rest of our HTML document so that we actually have Angular available to us. So let me oh, that's our node one. Close the wrong guy. Paste that in. And then we'll get the bottom stuff. Oh. All right, so working theory is we should be able to go to this file. So we'll open a file. We're going to open, I've stored it in my Dropbox, Project Snowman, index.html. Shouldn't these guys be bound? Why did who?
No, that's just, yeah.
One moment. They're binding it here. we can try it this way. Yeah. There's username. So this should bind. So this will show us a couple different ways it's supposed to work. I must be doing something funky here, but we'll see it here in a second. Go back. Let's refresh. I don't think so. Here's my script, app, my app, app controller, form controller, which is on. Oh, these guys are outside the div. Yeah, so here's the deal. I did that on purpose. All right, so this controller, form controller, governs everything inside of this div. Well, I had these binding things outside of the div, so they were not being governed by that controller. So they were just sitting there looking like idiots, like they were, because they weren't bound by anything. All right, so now this should be bound two different ways. All right, there we go. So now we type stuff in. So notice here the advantage of, well, I say the advantage, two different ways of binding. One way, this is Angular bind, where we're saying in between these tags, so this area right here, is bound by this variable. Now what I'm actually interested in is what happens if I do this? I actually don't know the answer to this. My understanding is, my guess is, if I do a bind on this P, whatever's in here is replaced with this. So my feeling is this shouldn't give us anything. Well, it should give us our username, but I shouldn't see username equals that. Yeah, it just replaces it. So I kind of wasted my time typing that typing that username thing in there. So the idea is, if I need to be expressive about it, this is a Angular expression. Really, the expression part is whatever's in here. But since I wanted to put some additional stuff here, I could use this format of binding in order to get a variable, to get a value of a variable, as opposed to this format allows me to replace whatever's inside of this opening and closing tag with the contents of this variable. Make sense? Okay, and then there's a third kind. Let me grab the syntax for that. All right, so that is expressions. That's the same thing. There's a third kind, isn't there? These are conditional bindings. Is there not a third kind? I guess we'll see if we stumble upon it. I thought there was a third kind of binding. Maybe that's just with Firebase because we could bind with the data model as well. So we'll just keep trucking. Okay, so we get our username and password. We're proving we were able to read that stuff in. We're going to go ahead and try to authenticate now with Firebase, and then we'll make our login page look a lot better. So here's our user authentication. And we're going to do email and password. Just steal all that. And this is going to be scope.username. And then password is going to be scope dot. Scope. Oh man, I butchered that, didn't I? Scope dot. Password. Kick this down. If we got an error, do that stuff. Else we're going to do that. Should be good enough. And then we're going to say authenticated is equal to authenticated. Get rid of this password thing here. Get rid of this bind thing here. We'll say $scope, man, authenticated is equal to failed, else success. Let's see what auth data looks like. So we'll save that. So, excuse me, we'll type our stuff in. We'll click our button that should call inside of our scope our login function. This is going to, we need to update our Firebase and probably give ourselves a username and password. Let's go in here. Here's our project, this guy right here. Copy link address. Actually, that's not going to go where you want it. Is there a way to click it in here? Oh, is this it? I just need the address.
Oh yeah, there is a way. It's in your simulator. The computer looking guy.
Computer looking guy, this guy.
Down. Simulate.
I think it's what we typed in. All right, fair enough. And let's give ourselves an account. So we want to enable email and password authentication. And we don't have anonymous on, that's good. Let's go ahead and add a user. And let's do user1@user.com, and password will be abc123. All right, so there's our user. Now we're going to go ahead and try to log in. User1@user.com, abc123, click login. Should we see the attempts?
And if you have something wrong in your code, you have to go through the
All right, this is, simulating authentication. Do. Projects to be. It's Firebase. Oh, hold on. Very good reason for this. We haven't given ourselves access to Firebase. Installation and setup. This guy. Well, I am now, but I mean, we clearly had a problem in our code because we had never brought in.
No, go to it again now.
Go to this?
Yeah, go to your the right three bars at the top. Then go to tools, more tools, and then developer tools. And it'll tell us we have an error somewhere.
Yeah, go to that console.
Because it'll give us a console then too.
Hey, you can console that log now.
User1@user.com. Alright, so you want me to go back in and console it now?
On the
So
script.
that is your console.
Yeah, if you go back
Right, but you want me to update the script to do the console right.
It should have it on there, right?
I took it out.
We did.
On the script tag where you put Firebase in, at the end you forgot that last tag.
Certainly could be a problem. Okay, good. We got an error there. All right, so that's us logged in. All right, so we don't need the console thing. And that's what auth data looked like. Okay, so if we're logged in and it creates a token and all this stuff that we don't need right now, then we want to redirect someplace else. So let's get to our, let's see. Well, let's do a local page first. New, and we'll call this guy home.html. Oh, that's not it. Home.html. We'll just have it say home page for it now. Proving we got there. And then we can do Angular. Do location.path. So that'll ultimately be what we're going to do. So we can still say that, and then we'll say, I call it home.html. Oh, we don't have a location. Looks like we have a window thing, but location I thought exists too. I don't think we want to do that for this. Guess let's try this. Windows not defined there. That would be for a variable. So is this a built-in global for Angular? There we go. All right, so there's a built-in global here for Angular that takes us to another page, and that is, I had to take us to home.html, but now we need to find out what kind of user we are. So on the second page, we want to go ahead and right off the bat find out who we are. So we're going to go back into user authentication. Let's see, we are already logged in, so we want to ensure that we're still logged in. Yeah, here's authentication state. All right, so we can just get auth here. So I'm going to steal the first page as part of our authentication. Actually, I'm just going to steal this whole page for right now. And we're going to put that in home.html. Because it doesn't really care what we call it. Controller there. We'll leave the rest of the stuff alone. And we're just going to write some code right in there. So we're going to steal this code after we get our ref. I can steal that from the other page. So we'll go ahead and get our reference. We're going to see if we're authenticated. If we are not authenticated, yay. So I'm going to steal this, steal this. If auth data we are logged in. So really what we want to say is if not auth data, we want to redirect them to index.html. Okay. And the reality is we're probably not going to be able to test this without logging out. So right now, if I reload on this, it's keeping us on this screen because we are already authenticated. Should be able to actually prove it by just putting in auth data. Well, we could force a log out. So in this home, oh, it's because I need to do this. Scope.auth data. That should then fill in that. So we should see our auth data then. Auth data is not defined.
Oh, you never created it.
It did right here.
No, it should just be bar auth data.
That's what I had before.
It's not off the HTML. You shouldn't be getting it out of the HTML. It should be just in the Angular.
Yeah, right here. So we set variables up.
The authenticated you have to get from Firebase.
No, we have it right here.
Yeah. So that should be it.
Yeah, so it should be scope.this.
That says score.
Yeah, whatever. All right, so this is setting this variable that's within our scope equal to whatever's returned here. Then we're asking some questions about it, so here we can just take that out, not ask the question. And this should, this is controller, this is my app, this is my app, this is controller.
Oh, you're not importing Firebase, are you?
It's right up top.
No, the var app equals angular.module my app Firebase. So you need Firebase in the brackets.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
We didn't need it down here?
First line in your script.
Oh, right here. This is what you're talking about?
Yeah, to the right in the brackets, so you need Firebase.
But we didn't have it on the first page, and it authenticated us, didn't it?
It's in parentheses. I think it's lowercase.
Lowercase f.
You mean quotation marks?
Yeah, quotation marks.
So it looks like that was assumed anyways, though. So here's our Firebase project. That's our ref. We're using getAuth. This should give us our auth data. And we have a binding right here for auth data. So if I just reload on this, Use the div my app controller unless, just as a sake of argument, I wonder if the word controller is a reserved word. My app controller, form controller for our app. Oops, same. Well, here, if we're going to go with just what this thing looks like. It's a console.log. And we'll just get this out of here for right now. Here's our scope. Here's our reference. Here's our get auth. Then we're consoling the auth data. Our script, end of our body, end of our HTML. What is he complaining about? Uncaught error. Injection. These are all inside of Angular. That looks fine. That looks fine. That looks fine. That shouldn't hurt anybody. That's a waste of time, but still not hurting anybody. Here's our app, Angular module, home, Firebase, app controller. I'm just gonna take that out for now. Okay, well there's like nothing in there and it's still dying. Okay. Just out of curiosity here. Where did you make up this Firebase and double quotes thing?
It's in the var. Let's go to the Angular library. So go down to libraries. And then go to your
Angular Fire?
Quick start. Scroll down a little bit. Down a little bit more.
missing a thing, a script up top. You need to hit source of Angular fire. So that button
Oh,
is
this
down
guy.
there. Yeah, you need that one.
All right, so that gives us Angular Fire, which should then allow that to work, right? That's the
Sure.
That's-
Everything should work, I believe.
that's the dealio. All right, so make sure we have all of our crap in. Oh, we're consoling it right now anyways, so let's see what that looks like. Okay, so this is showing the token, the object, okay. I should be able to do this then. How do we log out? We should be able to force a log out. Logging in users. Changing emails.
Log out, like, takes one, it's just one line.
Is it just log out?
On off.
So it's the opposite of what we have in this. So this we have ref auth with password, so it's unauth. So if auth data, then we're going to say ref dot unauth like that. Else window dot, we call it redirect, blah blah blah, location href, window dot location dot href. Okay. So if we refresh it the first time, we should stay on that page. It should then log us out. Then if we refresh it again, it should take us back to the index page because we should no longer be authenticated. Okay, now we're logged out. Refresh it again. There's our index page. User1 at user.com. ABC123, log in. It takes us here. We just got authenticated. We just got logged out automatically. If I hit refresh again, it takes us back. Okay. So let's go ahead and make sure we have a button that logs us out so we can test this pretty easily. So we want to give ourselves a log out button on that second screen. Okay, so let's see. For right now, we'll just not log us out. Should be okay. Just make sure we stay here. I should be able to auth data, but I don't think it's going to connect to this one. I think we need to do the scope thing, because this is just a local variable inside of, oh, we got to go back in. So now we're here. I can refresh multiple times. We're not actually seeing any value because there isn't a value called auth data. This is a local variable inside of our app but we would need to say scope dot auth data, scope dot auth data, in order to expose it to our code out here. Right, there's our auth data. Does that make sense? So scope exposes it to our model, well, to the app. So anything we say scope in here, we have access to out here. If we just said var in here like ref, we don't have access to that stuff up here. All right, so we see our auth data. And this has a whole bunch of stuff in it. All right, so now one thing we want to look at is how do we set roles? Is there a built-in way in Firebase for roles, or do we establish our own way of handling roles? So this particular person is logged in, but who is he? Is he an administrator? Is he a normal user? Or is he a service provider? We want to be able to differentiate between those three things. So let's see if we go into authentication. Are we allowed to set up roles under API reference? Let's just do a search for Firebase user roles. That's still not the way you spell that. It's pretty bad. All right, so okay, this is like a person who created their own data structure for it, which is what we might have to do. What information do we have? So we have user ID, we have a crazy token, okay, so it seems like if we have we're authenticated, which means we have a user ID available to us. We know we're authenticated. We should be able to, so this is a unique user ID, right? That's what it looks like to me. So I should be able to say auth token.uid to just get that piece, or auth data.uid. That should give us just that one piece. There we go. So that's our user ID. So we should be able to create a table in our database to keep track of user roles for our different people. But how's that going to work with creating user accounts? Let's think about this. So we go back into Firebase here. Here's our data. So we want to create all right, I think we have to do this with data. So we're going to have to fake it as if we had registered this user the correct way. So we'll create a Oh, we have to give it a table name first, right? So this is a role.
You add more tables to it. Yeah, that should just be blank, right? And then underneath that should be,
This should be our top level table.
yeah,
I think that value will go away once you
So this is the whole database right here, right? Before they had it like this.
that value will go away once you add stuff because it's null because you have nothing underneath it.
Now I can't even add stuff.
delete it out, delete null out of there.
Maybe I should just delete.
Okay. Delete everything out of it.
Remove. There we go. All right, so I want to add a record. So we got to think about this like a bunch of JSON records. So I want to add a record called role. Huh?
Hit the add.
This guy? Okay, so this just creates kind of a
The ID to get to
all the roles. Okay, so then within this we need to have a let's call it user, provider, and so here we have a user. So we want to then also have another thing underneath this, provider, and then admin. Okay, so under role, we're going to have people who are under the user role, and this should be a whole bunch of name value pairs for user IDs. Is that what makes sense to us? So basically we have a relation here called role, and if we have 50 users in our system, every single one of them is going to fall into one of these three categories, right? So probably 42 users are going to be underneath the user category. This is just going to be a whole bunch of UID. Let's see. That's interesting. What would the name value?
Do the roles and then just use, so get rid of the user, provider, and admin, then just have whatever the username is, and then its value is its role.
Yeah. Otherwise, well, like, what do you say for name value pair here?
Yeah, exactly.
So underneath role here,
Do whatever your username is.
so this is going to be UID, and then role is just going to be a word.
Yeah, so admin or
Okay.
word.
So name will be the actual user ID, correct? So we can steal that from here for now. And we're going to say this guy's just a normal user. And then let's go ahead and let's create one for each of our three categories, just so we can definitively see that we're telling them apart. Let's go back to login and auth. So we're going to create another user. We'll call this one, let's call this guy admin at user.com abc123. And then we'll create provider at user.com abc123. I missed like a bunch of characters there. I missed it again. Nailed it. All right, so there's our three guys. So let's do our provider one next. Oh, under data. then we'll grab our admin. And this is admin. Okay, so under our roles, we have a whole bunch of mappings like that. So now, based on the user ID, let's go ahead and do a lookup for that particular guy to see what kind of dude he is. So let's go back to guide, retrieving data. Okay, these are child change. Okay, so this is just the original retrieve, right? So we want to read on role. But we need to provide it our querying data. All right, so for us, we'll be looking at a reference on our slash role, or roles, whatever we called it. Just role. And then we want to say child, we put in our user ID here. So let's,
Would you get the value of that?
we have the value of that.
No, yeah, but how do you get the value of what's at the?
Well, I think we're going to get it right here. We don't need to string all these things together. We'll just say ref.child UID. Well, we'll pass at the actual UID.
Yeah.
And then on value. All right, so let's give this the old college try. Pun intended. All right, go back in here. So if we have auth data, that means we're logged in. Let's find out who we are. So we're going to do var db. Actually, we probably could just use ref again. Oh, I guess I get what you're saying. We could just use the .child roles.
Yeah.
That's kind of that's probably the way they intend for you to do it, right? So we want role as the first child. And then the second child within that, we want to pass it our auth data .uid. All right, and then this guy data.val, so we'll say $scope dot role is equal to, I don't think we need all this extra crap in here. And then up here, we're going to just have it display role. So we come to this page, we'll try to authenticate. If we are authenticated, then we're going to find out what our role is. So we'll go to a child off of our base reference to get to our role relation. And then child within that of our UID, whatever our UID is. On its value, we'll get our function data, and then we'll get the value of that, which should just be our string. Okay. Oh. Huh? No. Let's do some console stuff. Console.log data. Just see what that guy looks like. Ooh. Looks exhilarating. Okay, so I think we're onto something good, but not quite where we need to be. Just for the sake of argument, let's go ahead and hard code in our user ID here, just in case this guy is zigging when it's supposed to be zagging.
Did you get to console.log that data?
Well, what it logged out was that thing I called exhilarating. This?
Have it log out the .val of that. That'll return the
Oh, I understand what you're saying.
theoretical.
We'll go ahead and hard code in our user ID for now too. Okay, so it's found the right thing. Let's go back to what this was. This was scope.authdata.uid. I'm lost. Okay, so it's still finding that. So it's just not binding it then is the issue. So I said scope.role is equal to data.val. We see data.val is the right thing. And then I'm just trying to say role right there.
What was that other way that you found stuff earlier?
Well, I should be able to say auth data here and it should still show stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Is the difference because this scope is out here and this other one is inside of this if? Do we need to give our scope a top level value and then have it redescribed or like redefined inside? So it should give us our auth data, and it does. So I guess just to check that real quick, then we can do this. Scope.role is equal to blah. And then we'll update role to be whatever data's value is. Except I need to actually change the code here. Who? Yeah, it does. We're getting the right data. We're just not displaying it on the screen, which isn't that huge of a deal, but it's more like we're sitting here looking at it, so let's find out if there's like a weird scoping rule. It's interesting. Here's blah. Right here. Oh, I know what the problem is. We're retrieving the data, but doesn't we saw this last time? Didn't there need to be a different event in order for us to actually get the data to change? I think it's this. All that stuff we deleted. Let's see, where was the? So this was on value here. Well, I guess in this case it doesn't really matter, seeing as though we're having them bounce between pages anyways. So let's just stay on task for what we're trying to accomplish. At some point we're going to need to be able to really use that data. So we're getting our value here. This is where we're consoling it. So now we're just going to ask the question, if data.val is equal to user, we're going to redirect them to user, else if it's equal to provider, redirect them there. I'm going to do the else if again, rather than just a catch-all else. You probably don't want to have your admin functionality inside of a catch-all else. Like, look, if you're not a user, you're not a provider, you control the whole system. It's all yours. I know we had a small authentication bug, and now you can just do everything you want. All right. So we have that. And what we need to do is we need to give ourselves kind of a starter template here. Yeah, and actually what we could do is if they're a normal user, we can leave them here. If they're a provider, we can go to like a provider home. Just say provider in there right now. This is provider home. This is controller. Yeah, but I think that wasn't the issue. Okay, we still need to do the auth thing. If not, auth data. Do that. So we need to make sure we do that. That way people can't directly go to one of our pages deeper into our site. So for instance, if you know the logged in home pages for provider home is providerhome.html and you just go right to that page, this should bump you back to the index.html to force you to log in. All right, so that'll do that for that one. Yeah, actually, we probably need to do a couple of things here.
Can you just check all of them? Do the same thing that we have the same if statement that we had before in the else return to the login screen.
Yeah, but what we need to do is we need to check the if somebody tried. Let's say I'm logged in as me, like normal. Let's say I'm a normal user, and I try to go to the admin page. It's going to detect that I'm logged in.
Yeah.
So this is going to fail. It's not going to redirect me to index.
No, but so what you do is you do the exact same if statement as we had before,
Mm-hmm.
and then for the else, take them back to the login screen, and then otherwise take them to the correct screen they should be on.
So share this screen among all of those. So in here, you want to do
We could just basically
copy this whole thing. And then depending on which screen I'm on, do the appropriate thing. I guess we could, if they're logged in, we could just redirect them to the correct place rather than log them out. Okay.
And then the else can take them automatically back to the login screen, which is
All right, so every screen is going to try to log them in. There's probably a nicer way. You could probably throw this in a JavaScript file and reference it, but we're not. So we'll just leave it here and give us some practice working with it. Okay, so provider home, we have our controller, Firebase, try to authenticate them. We don't need this blah thing. If they're authenticated, let's find out what their role is. If we're in provider home, if their role is provider, we're good. So that's where we should be. If we're in here, send them back to home. So what did we decide? That was window.location.ref equals, was it href? Equals home.html. If they're, I guess if they're admin for right now, we're going to send them to the admin.
Just send them back to home if they're not a provider. If we're going to send them to the provider.
And just let provider handle all of it. Or I'm sorry, let home handle all of it. So if I'm here, if I try to come to provider, if I'm a provider, I'm where I should be. But if I'm not, we can just send them back to home and let home reroute them.
Correct.
Rather than write the lot.
The only way they would get routed there mistakenly would be if they typed it in, right?
Yeah.
I guess it doesn't hurt to reroute them to the correct place, but the only way they would do it automatically.
But we could just have all our code in one place. If we have all of our code in home that handles all the routing, and we decide to change the way somebody's routed, and we're always sending them back to home, home can have all that logic there. We don't have to change it in 4 places where we decided how we change the route. So if you're not in the right place, we're going to send you home. That's just that's basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to say this. If we're here, if we're not equal to provider, we're going to say window.location.href is equal to home.html. Yeah, so we'll just deal with it. Okay, so if we're authenticated and we're not a provider, send them away. All right, and we're currently logged in as a user, correct? So we should be able to check this by trying to go directly to provider home, and then it should bump us back here to our user. Here's provider home. Getting like something. Looks like a syntax problem. Line 24. Right here, missing a closing. Oh, this is the function dealy. So this is one of those guys to close. Then we close that. Then we close that. Okay, this sent us back home. So we're not logged in as the right kind of user. Perfect. Okay, so this is our blank base for provider home and admin home. We could just steal this and build admin home and just change up our statement a little bit here. So new file, save, admin home.html, paste all this in. If we're not equal to admin, send them home. And we're going to call this guy admin home. Admin home. Fair enough. So this is our admin home stuff. This is our provider home stuff. Our normal home stuff is going to basically be the same thing as this, but for our normal user. So actually, we could just steal this. Well, no, we don't. We want this to be a little different. This is currently showing our role. We'll leave that alone. So we're going to change this. If role is provider, we're going to redirect him to provider. Window.location.href is equal to provider home.html. Else if admin home.html. Get rid of that, get rid of that. Let's call this user home right there. That's provider home. And this is admin home. All right. So if we're still cooking here, then we're, so this says if we're authenticated, make sure we're in the right place. So if we are I think that's actually it. If we are still alive, we are logged in and a normal user. Right? I think that sounds right to me. So if we're logged in and we're a provider, send us to the provider page. If we're logged in and we're admin, send us to the admin page. Otherwise, if we're logged in and we escaped all this stuff, we didn't get anything else, we just get dumped out here, we're where we are supposed to be, and now we could add the additional functionality. Okay, so let's save that. Let's log in with a couple of different users then. We do need to give ourselves a log out button, don't we? I'm actually going to change this. This is home. Change that to controller. Do that. All right, now we're going to go back to this guy, and we're going to have our put a form in here. I don't even think we need a form. I think we can just put a button. And this is going to be our logout button. All right, and just like we had for our login here, we're just going to do that. And this is ref.unauth. And then we'll send them back to index. All right, let's see what that does. Okay, and let's get this authenticated thing off our main index page. We don't need that anymore. It's kind of a local file. I break something just by doing that. Oh no, we have Firebase in here.
You have the other,
Yeah.
you don't-
Angular Fire, yeah. So how did it work in the first place? Okay, so he's happy again. So let's just do user1 at user.com. Actually, let's go in as a provider. And then we're going to say ABC123, log in. There's our provider home. One interesting thing, that stuff did pop up. Like I saw that button there for a second. We probably don't want that to appear, do we? If I try to go back to the home page, you see how you can see the logout button there for a second? Erase it. And we need to give ourselves a logout button, but we probably don't want to see the user homepage. This should be invisible to us.
But you're pushing back. So it's going back to it and it's automatically taking you back.
Right, but I saw it the first time. When I first hit login, and it took us to that home page first and then redirected us here, I saw the logout button. It was on the page temporarily while it was doing the rest of the work. You know, we don't really want to have anything on that page until the page should be rendered. So I guess we need to look at because what's happening here is in home, this stuff up here is getting rendered. I guess what we can do is we can put this we can put our script at the top. It's a little bit well, you might start putting them in separate JavaScript files anyways to make this cleaner, but if we put that up top like that, then this should get processed before the page renders, because it's being interpreted by the browser. So that means if I hit back here, user1 at user.com, abc123, log out, just want to ensure something here, provider home.html. We're still logged in. We're logged in as two separate users. So when I went back to index and I re-logged in, so right now if I go to home.html, it bounces me out. If I go to admin.admin.home, right, .html, I guess it seems to be cool with that, whether I'm an admin or not. Did we not update admin home? Well, it seems like we don't actually get logged out. So, for instance, if I go here, we would expect if I log in as user1 at user.com, abc123, that this should log me in and take me to the home screen, right? And it does. Now, if I hit log out, I should be completely logged out of the system, right? So I'll do that. But now if I try to go to provider home, see, it's fine with me being at provider home now.
Did you log into provider before?
Yeah, previously I had.
Okay. Did you log out from provider?
Not from provider.
Okay.
I logged out from the home screen, so shouldn't that log us out completely on the local?
So it's like you logged into provider, then you went back to index and
Logged back in as user. So
logged out as user, so now you're still technically logged in as
but
provider.
yeah, but that doesn't seem like it should be the way it works. I was logged into the system as 2 different users, it seems like.
Mine won't let me log in as 2 different users.
Probably try to tell it to
I
log
tried.
you out before you log in on index.
Yes, even well, this is weird. It lets me into admin home, and I am not logged in as an admin.
Did you?
Our website is so
Good thing our client's not a bank.
Yeah, it's not working for me.
Okay. Well, let's see here then. The problem here is that the soda has bubbles in it.
So it tastes better than without bubbles, or worse without bubbles. What is it?
It's not drinkable with bubbles. Is my understanding. It's fine without bubbles. It's poisonous. All right.
It's got bubbles.
So the theory here was if we go to the index screen, we could steal.
Yeah, you can tell it to on and off.
Right, but is that what we wanted to do?
I mean, do you want to be able to log?
Well, no, we definitely shouldn't be able to log in as multiple users. But let's just use Amazon as an example. Let's say I go to I'm pretty much always logged into my Amazon account. So if I accidentally go to the Amazon's login page, do I want it to log me out of Amazon? Or do I want it to redirect me to my home page as if I'm logged in? Like, I don't think we want to artificially have the index.html page log us out. I think we want to have it reroute us to the proper place in the big scheme of things. Right now for testing, it would be nice to not reroute us. But certainly if we log in 4 times from that index page, we shouldn't be logged in as 4 different users. We should be logged in as just one dude. the last dude we logged in as, right? So what's different? You're saying yours is not doing this?
Yeah, no, mine's not.
Okay, so here's our.
Display your data again in the login screen.
So in index?
Yeah, try to put it into the even if it was in the console.
So console auth data?
And then don't reroute right away.
Console.log auth data, and then don't reroute us. Okay. Oh, you're thinking we might have a double JSON,
Yeah.
like a JSON that's showing 2 separate users for the
I
system.
mean, that would make sense, but I mean.
It's not what you're experiencing on your page, but it's something like that must be going on here. Okay. Let's go here.
Or does it have to do with using the back button?
I shouldn't, but I suppose maybe. All right, so let's do user1 at user.com, abc123. So it's better, right? Next time somebody complain. Let's see. Okay, so here's our object. Oh, okay, we make that bigger too. All right, so that's our object. Wait, hold on. We have F7D is one auth. Okay, it looks like there's just one dude here. So now let's change this to provider. Yeah, this is the new one. So that's a different dude logged in, right? And what we can do here, just for testing, let's go ahead and console that on home. I wonder if it has to do with the scope. Yeah, maybe it's like the scope is this global variable.
Oh yeah, I turned off keeping the auth data in scope.
The who?
I stopped keeping the auth data in scope. I just made the var.
So our var auth data there. Hold on.
In the if statement, the scope.
Oh, I see. That's it there. Okay. Give that the old college try. All right, so now we're in as a provider. So if we go to admin, I mean, it did the right thing. Looks a little funky. It goes admin to home to, to provider. Okay. So what's the answer to that? Is that scope variable? Well, I'm just wondering why it had different behaviors. Why did it behave one way when we were using the scope to hold our auth data? I think so. Here, I can log in again. Nailed it. admin@user.com. Okay, so he's logged in. I should be able to now try to go to admin home, and he should be good there. I should be able to go to provider home, and he should bank back to admin home. I should be able to go to home, and he should bank back to admin home. All right, so it seems like there's only one dude logged in at a time. So it seems like there wasn't a situation where there was more than one person logged in at once. The situation was the scope auth data always had something in it. So that's why it was allowing me to stay in those different pages. But why was it pretty much cool with whatever role? I have a theory, actually. So I go to the admin. This says, if the role is not equal to admin, go here. Oh, okay, so we should still be on this screen then. So that means if it left us here, it was because as far as it was concerned, the role was admin. Wonder how that is. I'm going to try something here. All right, so I named on home, provider home, and admin home, all my controllers are called controller. I wonder if that scope becomes shared between those. So what I'm going to do is here in home, I'm going to say scope dot number is equal to 5. And then in, who am I currently logged in as an admin? Then in admin, let's console scope.number and see if he's familiar with the scope from the other controller. Even though this app is a different app. So admin home versus provider home versus home are our 3 apps, but the controllers all share a name. So in my mind, these controllers should be unique to their particular app, but that is, something's going on here. So let's see what this guy should be. So I set it, what, to 5? All right. So let's force a bounce to home. Okay, yeah, so it doesn't know about us, so that proves that those controllers are unique to their app. I have a theory here. I'm going to print out scope auth data. I'm interested in maybe Angular Fire sets a global variable equal to that. Nope. Undefined. All right, well, I guess we're just rolling with it for now. We used get auth from our ref, which is this guy, and we stored it inside the scope. We just proved that those scopes have nothing to do with each other. So it shouldn't matter whether we used a local variable auth data or a global variable or a scope level auth data. Okay, well, I guess whatever for right now. So let's take a 20-minute break and we'll come back and we're going to look at organizing our code a little bit better for creating our pages and getting that button not to show up before we've made some decisions. And then what we want to do is we want to try to create some logic that bounces back and forth between a user requesting something, we're not going to start off being a full-fledged snow removal thing, and the provider seeing something when he logs in. And then hopefully, if we get to it, we'll be able to see that we have a user logged in on one screen, a provider logged in another screen, and when we add one in one thing, it pops up automatically in the other one. That's the Firebase way of doing it. All right, so 820.